Alrighty crew, thank you for all the questions. I've had lots come in. It's time to pump through some more answers. Number one is from Pamela Appleton. What is your skiing prep and ritual before a comp? Example, diet, exercise routine, yoga, stretching. Do you wear the same underwear or shorts as a good luck charm like some athletes do? So as far as superstitions go, it's definitely not something I've ever found any interest or necessity for. I know that there's plenty of athletes that do have some pretty strange superstitions, and a lot of those athletes are very high caliber. But it's just something that I almost feel I would intentionally avoid if I did find myself beginning to create some form of superstition around board shorts, underwear, or anything like that. I mean, I'd probably break it intentionally just to make sure that that never really entered my psyche. And then pre-ski rituals. As far as diet, exercise routine, yoga, stretching, yeah, I mean, I do have some form of each of those implemented into my pre-ski routine at each and every tournament. But the degree to which any one of those will be utilized at any tournament varies, because I'm not aiming to have the same pre-ski ritual. I'm aiming to have the same pre-ski sort of level of tension and energy within my body itself. Meaning that I want to feel like my mind is ticking nice and fast, and if it's not, well then I might implement some more caffeine or something like that to sort of get my mind feeling in the right zone. And likewise with my body, if I'm feeling far too relaxed, well then I'm not going to go and do yoga or stretching. I'm going to do more of an active warm-up. But if I really am feeling sort of over pumped up and a little too tensed, well then yeah, I might chuck in a little bit of yoga and stretching to sort of calm things down. Like there's a middle zone, there's a window where I need to feel both mentally and physically in order to perform my peak. And everything I do before a tournament is just aimed at getting my mind and my body in that little window. I saw that Greg's Lucan's answer to that was he does this weird grunt thing. So I don't know what that's about, but yeah, apparently I do a weird grunt thing prior to skiing. I think he's probably talking about like when I'm warming up and getting pumped up to go ski. I feel like skiing is such a technical sport. A lot of people lose sight of the fact that you can run a lot more buoys by just doing big turns and pulling really hard. At the end of the day, it's a very physical activity. Question by Lucas Cornell, one of the greatest junior athletes on the planet right now in the sport of water skiing. What is the biggest tip you have got that changed your skiing the most, and from who? I'm probably going to do a bit of a cop-out answer on this. I mean, I know it would be great to just say something that you can immediately go and implement, like hold the handle longer. That fixed everything. But I mean, unfortunately, skiing's pretty difficult to sort of lock down one tiny little piece of advice that I then carried with me for any longer than sort of a season. Because a lot of the times, if you're given a piece of advice like you need to carry the handle longer, you would hope that you implement that into your skiing and then it no longer becomes necessary. And if you carry the handle any longer than that, it's detrimental. So yeah, I do immediately have something that comes to mind, but what it was is my original coach back in the day, Les Walters. Les once told me, just test it. And the context in which he told me that was me having gone on the internet and discovered this whole West Coast slalom technique and sort of deciding that that was going to be how I'd ski from then on forever. And there's lots of different techniques that you can go and research where people will sort of argue one way or the another as far as what your body should be doing through the course to get the most out of it through both sort of increasing load and efficiency. And yeah, I mean, I sort of really did come to Les with basically a plan for my skiing heading forward. And I would sort of argue now that Les would have seen that plan and thought, well, you know, that's not a very good plan. But I mean, if Les had have told me that, there's a good chance I would have done it anyway. But Les's response was, sweet, that's great, let's go test it. And so I really feel like through that sort of interaction that I had with Les, and I really do remember it because I sort of had like documents and lots of things printed out and both drawn myself, basically detailing how I wanted to ski from then on. And I mean, I just feel like Les definitely wasn't opposed to me pursuing a different path or sort of planning out my future strategy for skiing. But it just all had to come back to implement the change, test the change, assess whether you're going to keep it or throw it out. And at the end of the day, I completely threw it out. It wasn't right for me, and I would argue for most. But yeah, it's just very important that no matter how amazing any piece of advice myself or anybody gives you, if it can't be boiled down to just like a very simple alteration in your technique that you go out and test, well then it's possibly something that, I mean, may be very useful knowledge, but is not going to assist you much at all with your skiing. This sport's very technical. A lot of people don't quite understand the swing dynamic and all the rest of it, but you can get very good at skiing without really understanding that. In that if you just make some changes and then really accurately assess the consequences that they have, that's enough to get you a very long way. The issues arise, I believe, when somebody really feels like they have a deep understanding of the swing dynamics and what you should be doing with your hip at which location, and that becomes what they revolve everything around, opposed to just having it as very much an experiment where you test something and then assess the consequences. And when you get to the level of a professional water skier, those time frames get very exaggerated, in that for me to implement a change, it may take a season, or I've had changes that took longer than a season to implement. And it's not until you've implemented that change successfully that you can really assess the outcome. But at that point, and I've done this, you still have to be willing to throw it away if you decide that that change that you finally implemented after a season and a half of attempting to put it into your skiing was not the best outcome or the best path for you to proceed down. Alrighty, I'm going to keep these short, so that'll do for this one, and we'll be back with more.